Hi, this is Paul with Ryobi Parts. Today we're going to show you how to change out this plate clamp and how to decide what parts need to go in it. What happens is when you put your plate, this is the lead clamp here, when you put your plate in there and you grab onto these lock pins, you can see this coming in and out. That's what actually clamps your plate. There's one on each side. This is the lead and this is the tail, which does the same thing. These are eccentric pins in here. They get wear in them between the pin and there's another part that it hits on. So when these get worn out, the plate tends to slip out of the clamp more easily, which tends people to have them over tighten these clamps here. And you can see there's a big gap here. That gap should not be that much. These pins shouldn't, that gap shouldn't be there. So typically, when these start to wear, people just keep tightening and tightening and tightening. Well, that spring gets smashed out. And that's one telltale sign that there's some parts worn. Here's what that spring is supposed to look like. You can see what's in there. So, we're just going to pull this out real quick here. Basically, we got two 4mm bolts here, two 4mm bolts here. Before we get to that point though, one thing we got to do is there's a spring-loaded pin over here that pushes the clamp towards the operator side. Going to the non-op side, we've got a bolt over here that we can turn, mechanically push it that way. So in the end of this pin there's a hole, and I'm going to take just a 2.5mm, 2 or 2.5mm, and just kind of, you should be able to feel it over there. You can actually see I'm in it because it's moving. So that's going to hold that pin. There's an identical pin down here that you can't get to because the hole is covered up by this plate. I'm not going to pull that plate. I'm just going to be very careful when I get that out of there. So I'm just going to loosen these 4 bolts with, usually these are pretty tight because they got Loctite on them, unless they've been out before. Just loosen them up here. And then, if you got a T-wrench, they come out a lot quicker. You're going to pull this out. It's nice to have a magnet nearby, or have a rag laying down, which I do have a rag laying down out of the picture. I would typically clean these completely up when I have them out. Soak them in blanket wash for a day or so. Okay, so these 4 bolts are out. This pin is secure, but this pin is going to want to fly out because it's got pressure on it. So I'm going to just grab over here. I'm going to pull this end out only. I want to leave that end in. While I'm pulling it out, I'm squeezing them this way. There's springs here that are trying to force it out, so I'm going to squeeze it that way. So you can see that pin is held, but the bottom one's not. So I'm going to get my hand on the back side, reach in with my finger and push down, holding pressure down on that pin. Oh, and that's what happens. So the nice thing about that is you got this little guy here. Should be able to find that pretty easy down in there. I think I've done that before, huh? So there's what goes in there. And in the pin, there's a hole in the end of it. You can see that's what that goes in. So this one here, you got a way to hold that. The lower one you don't. So putting it back in, you just got to be careful not to drop that stuff. Now let's have a look at the clamp over here. So here we've got the clamp. This is the tail clamp. Here I can tell because this is a square bar here, perfectly square. This one here, you can see it's got like a divot like across it. So in this tail clamp here, we have kits we sell that include just this bolt and this nut and this spring, which would be these things right here. Like that little set right there. And this would be a lead or tail clamp rebuild kit. They have the lock pins, the brackets. Old style is a little bit smaller in diameter than new style. The two plates that usually crack, get worn, and they'll actually crack or break in two. Lead bolts, the springs like I showed you on the cylinder. So let's just pretend that I went ahead and rebuilt these. I know it'll be in a different video. So we're going to go ahead and put this back in. Yeah, so I'm going to get that started right in there like that. And then do that. There we go. There we go. Okay, and then pinch it and push it in. Squeeze it back here. I'm fighting a little bit here, but that's okay. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to put these little guys back in there. Start it and then lock them down. Yeah, at least it gives you the just. You can always call us and we'll walk you through this if you run into a problem as well. Okay, lock that down good. 2 to go. Pull this guy out. There you go. Bam. Removal and reinstallation of the plate clamp. It's also the same on a 3300 and a 3302M, 3985, 9985, and a 3980. Ryobi Parts. Call us.